Hello everyone and welcome to this evidence-based practice video. Today, we're going to talk about the levels of evidence. Understanding these levels is essential not only for safe, effective clinical practice but also for writing strong academic assignments. In both cases, you need to show that the information you're using is reliable and based on the best available research. Not all evidence is created equal. Some studies give us strong, trustworthy information, while others are weaker and more prone to bias. Levels of evidence help us rank research from the strongest to the weakest, guiding us on what we can trust when making clinical decisions or when justifying points in your essays. Think of the levels of evidence as a pyramid. At the top of the pyramid, we find the most reliable research, and as we move down, the evidence becomes less reliable. In assignments, being able to recognize this pyramid helps you explain why you've used certain studies and shows your marker that you've critically considered the strength of your evidence. At the very top, we have systematic reviews and meta-analyses. A systematic review gathers all available studies on a topic, critically evaluates them, and summarizes the findings. A meta-analysis goes even further by combining data from multiple studies to create a single, powerful conclusion. These are highly reliable because they bring together large amounts of data. However, it's important to remember that systematic reviews and meta-analyses are not primary research. If your assignment specifically asks you to use primary research, these should not be included, because they are secondary sources that review and summarize other studies. Next, we have randomized controlled trials, or RCTs. These involve randomly assigning participants to groups, such as treatment versus placebo, which reduces bias and increases reliability. Unlike systematic reviews, RCTs are considered primary research because they involve original data collection. In assignments, RCTs are often key when evaluating the effectiveness of treatments or interventions because they provide strong cause and effect evidence. Below RCTs, we find cohort studies and case control studies. These are observational studies where researchers do not intervene but simply observe what happens. Cohort studies follow groups of people over time to see how certain factors affect outcomes, while case control studies look backwards by comparing people with a condition to those without it. These studies are valuable but lower on the pyramid. If you use them in assignments, it's important to explain their limitations. For example, they cannot prove cause and effect as strongly as RCTs. Further down, we have case series and case reports, which describe individual cases or small groups of patients. These can highlight unusual findings but provide weaker evidence. In assignments, they can be used to illustrate rare conditions or specific examples. However, acknowledging that it can be challenging to generalize these findings to larger populations may be useful in your essay. At the bottom of the pyramid is expert opinion and background information, such as textbooks. This type of information is helpful for general understanding, but in assignments, relying solely on this level of evidence will score less highly. It's always a good idea to show a wide reading range including research. When writing essays, reports, or dissertations, markers look for critical use of evidence. This means not just referencing a study, but explaining why it's strong or weak and how it supports your argument. Quoting high-level evidence like systematic reviews shows depth, but if you are asked for primary research, you must use original studies like RCTs or cohort studies. Recognizing weaker evidence and explaining its limitations shows you understand it rather than simply describe it. In summary, understanding the levels of evidence helps you deliver the safest, most effective care in practice, write stronger assignments that demonstrate critical thinking, and avoid the common mistake of using secondary sources when primary research is required.